the October 9th Planning Commission public hearing. My name is George Alcaraz. I'm the Chairman of the Planning Commission. Today, Commissioners Steris and Plumley will not be in attendance today. Before we get started, I'd like to ask Commissioner Costner to say the prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for a reasonable portion of health and strength and all the many things you've done for us. Now, Lord, as we come to deliberate and to discuss business on the behalf of the city of Virginia Beach, we ask that you would give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding that our decisions may be true. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Right now, what we'll do is we'll introduce ourselves, starting with our city attorney over here, and we'll go down the line, and then we'll have the staff introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Hi, Victoria Eisenberg, Deputy City Attorney for Land Use.
Hello, my name is Michael Mach. I have the pleasure of serving the entire city as the at-large representative.
John Cromwell, District 2, which is Pungo and Blackwater.
Hi, Mike Anderson, District 3.
Good afternoon. Catherine Byler, District 4, which is Virginia Beach Town Center and the area around there, all the way up to Newtown Road.
George Alcaraz, District 5.
Holly Cuellar, District 8.
Susan Ippen, District 7.
John Costin, District 9.
William Parks, District 10.
Caitlin Alcock, Planning Administrator. Clerking to my left, we have Kristen Bauer and Beth Mowry. In the audience, we have Planning Director Kathy Warren, Deputy Director Carrie Buchholt. With our Planning Administration team, we have Marshall Coleman and Alexis Bailey. With our zoning team, we have Zoning Administrator Kevin Kemp, Deputy Zoning Administrator Brandon Hackney. We have Garrick Hannigan. And with our SDR team, we have Sherry Anev and Tilly Hopkins. Finally, we have Aubrey Trebilcock with our Development Services Center, and Rick Lohman and Katie Shannon with our Public Works Traffic Group.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. The next order of business, I'd like the clerk to describe the rules and order of business for today's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the commission normally conducts its meetings. It is equally important that everyone treat each other and the members of the commission with respect and civility. We request that cell phones be put on silent during this meeting. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is located in the front of the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order of business for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there are any requests to withdraw or defer an item on the agenda. Consideration of these requests will be made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items that the Planning Commission believe are unopposed and which have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The Commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. When an agenda item has been called, we will recognize the applicant or their representative first. Following the applicant or their representative, in-person speakers will be called next, and then the speakers participating via WebEx. Speakers in support or opposition of an agenda item will have 3 minutes to speak unless they are solely representing a large group, such as a civic league or homeowners association, in which case they will have 10 minutes. If a speaker does not respond or if a technical issue occurs which renders the comments unintelligible, we will move on to the next speaker or the next order of business. Please note that the actions taken by the Commission today are in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision to approve or disapprove an application will be made by the City Council. The Commission thanks you for your attendance, and we hope that your experience here today leaves you feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we move on to our agenda, we need to vote for the September 11th Planning Commission minutes. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move that we approve the September 11th Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Motion by Mr. Cuellar. I need a second.
Second.
second by Mr. Parks. Anybody abstaining? Myself, I will be. Anybody else? Okay.
I'll be abstaining I was not present.
Mr. Anderson also.
The vote is now open. By a recorded vote of 7-0 with 2 abstentions, the September 11th, 2024 minutes have been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, the next order of business is for consideration for requests of withdrawals or deferrals. Are there any withdrawals here today? All right, there are none, Ms. Clerk. Are there any deferrals today? I understand there could be one. Ms. Alcock, can you please explain that?
Yes, Chairman, we are asking for a 30-day deferral for item 4. That is JD Enterprises VA LLC. It's a short-term rental request for 903 Pacific Avenue. After our informal session today, we had some discussions with the Commissioner of the Revenue, and it seems like there's some continuing questions on the grandfathered status, so we just want additional time to look into that, and we plan to bring it back at your November hearing.
And the applicant is not here today?
We tried to reach out to the applicant. We're not able to make contact, so we'll continue to try to do that before the November hearing.
All right. So Commissioners, we have a deferral request. I need a motion.
I move that we defer item number 4 for 30 days.
I second that.
I have a motion by Ms. Quaylar for 30 days, seconded by Ms. Byler.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 9-0, item number 4, JD Enterprises VA LLC DBA Atlantic Rental Homes has been recommended for deferral.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'll pass it on to the Vice Chair to start with the consent agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Today, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. These are applications that are recommended for approval by the staff. The Planning Commission has concurred, and there are no speakers signed up in opposition. Our first item is item number 1, City of Virginia Beach, an ordinance to amend Section 1501 of the city's zoning ordinance pertaining to eating and drinking establishments.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lane Harrington. I'm with the Zoning Administration, and this agenda item 1 pertains to a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance related to eating and drinking establishments in the RT1 zone districts. The purpose of this amendment is to permit the use of eating and drinking establishments as a by right in the RT1 zoning district. Currently, the RT1 district requires a conditional use permit for this use, as well as 2 additional requirements. The first one being that alcoholic beverages must be served, and the second one being that the restaurant must exclude persons on the basis of age at any point during the day. The RT1 district was intended to provide areas that can accommodate high-density hotels and their related needs adjacent to the oceanfront of the resort area between Atlantic Avenue and the boardwalk. During the adoption of the Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code, most of the RT1 zoning was replaced with the new OR district. Currently, there are 5 existing parcels zoned RT1, 2 of which are city-owned and are located over the water surface within the Rudy Inlet and North Croatan. The remaining 3 parcels are located along Winston-Salem Avenue and are all within that southern resort area. And then you can go to the next slide. So this is a depiction of what the amendment will be doing, switching that permission from a C to a P and removing those additional requirements. And as stated in the Resort Area Strategic Action Plan, the Marina District itself is envisioned as a place for a mixed-use redevelopment that includes restaurants and other uses compatible to the surrounding neighborhoods. While the original context of the RT1 zoning district may have warranted the limitation of restaurants, staff does not feel such limitations continue to be warranted, given based on the limited number of remaining RT1 parcels. Staff finds this amendment to be in keeping with the context of the resort area and the Marina District.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Harrington? And is there any opposition? You may be seated. Thank you. The next item on the consent agenda is agenda item number 2, City of Virginia Beach, an ordinance to adopt and incorporate into the Virginia Beach Comprehensive Plan, our 2016, the Local Road Safety Action Plan 2024.
Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. My name is Katie Shannon with Public Works Engineering, and we are here requesting that the 2016 Comprehensive Plan be amended to adopt the 2024 Local Road Safety Action Plan. The Local Road Safety Action Plan is a comprehensive roadway safety plan originating from the combination of a need for a citywide safety plan as well as a requirement for some of our federal grants. The plan aims to improve safety for all roadway users through a data-driven, equitable approach by proposing proven countermeasures to implement throughout the city.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? And do I have any opposition to this? You may be seated.
Thank you.
Our next item on the consent agenda is Kempsville Christian Church. Is the property owner here?
Thank you, Planning Commission members. Bobby Tahan, elder and member of the Board of Directors of Kempsville Christian Church, 5424 Parliament Drive. We thank you for being on the consent agenda, and we're amenable to the conditions.
We thank you for being with us today and being on the other side of this dais. So thank you, Mr. Tahan.
Thank you.
Are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay, great. You may be seated. Is there any opposition to this item being on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I've asked Commissioner Anderson to read this into the record.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a modification of conditions to a conditional use permit for a religious use to incorporate the parcel immediately to the west, 5432 Parliament Drive, within the boundaries of the conditional use permit, and to construct 2 additions to the existing church building at 5424 Parliament Drive. One addition will be approximately 12,000 square feet to accommodate an interior multi-purpose area, and the other will be a new entry and connector that will not be larger than 900 square feet. Both additions will be located on the rear of the church on the north elevation. For this reason, we saw no objections, and we want to put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that was the last item on our consent agenda. The Planning Commission places the following applications on the consent agenda, items number 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I have a motion to put these items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Hippen has a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Quaylar.
The vote is now open. By a vote of 9-0, items 1, 2, and 3 have been recommended for approval by consent.
All right, thank you. That concludes our consent. Those of you that have been approved, you can get with your planning representative, see when you're available to be in front of City Council. Our next item of business is the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have speakers?
We do. We have 3 speakers.
3 speakers? All right. You want me to call them up?
Our first speaker is Chandler Calvert, followed by Albert
We need to
Ailey.
get the applicant to come up first.
That's what I meant. I thought she was calling them up. Sorry. I got a new script. Can the speaker please come up for agenda number 4?
Mr. Brown, can you? Ms. Brown, can you come up and speak to your item?
It's number 5. Sorry.
Sorry.
Come forward. I'll take the blame here. Just state your name, please.
It's Thomas Brown, and I'm the applicant.
Okay.
And good afternoon. I'm here, basically, we've been through the whole process before, and everything was approved by City Council. But then in getting into the engineer cost, the main problem was taking 7 existing lots, and we're going to end up with 7 existing lots. But they wanted to put it under a multi-lot new subdivision plan, which requires the extensive stormwater plan. And then when the engineer, I was warned against agreeing to that because they said, well, every time they run that modeling plan, it costs about $10,000. But I figured, well, 2 or 3 times, 4, whatever, we can live with that. But then after everything was approved and we got with the engineer, and he got into what the actual, retention ponds and everything would cost, they got to where, it could get up to $800,000 to $1 million. We're starting with 12.34 acres, 7 existing lots that comply with the existing lots under the density program. 5 of them are buildable as they are, but 2 of them, the other 2, one is assessed at $135,000 and the other one's at $195,000. So the city does think there's a process to have the other 2 buildable. So the way I see it, we're starting with 7 lots, we're ending with 7 lots. The only additional value that I'm gaining by, right now they're pretty well buildable. The only additional value I'm gaining by going through this process, if you look at staff report page 8 and 9, is we're trying to make the lots look a lot better. By just changing the dividing lines, they make them look very much better. So that's what we originally came to do. But then City Council requested putting in a 20-foot asphalt lane that's it's 1,324 feet long. If you've ever put in a driveway that's 50 by 10, you know how expensive that can get. And they requested us bringing in city sewer. And all of that, I felt, well, that'll make the whole project nicer for the city and everything. Because if you look at it now, if we build on the 7 lots, and I'm not going to build on them. Originally, I planned on building on them back when we started this like 5 years ago. But since then, I've retired. So I'm just trying to make them look better to sell individually to people that do want to build. But if we build on them right now, or if I sell them right now as they are, which it seems that I'm almost to the point of having to do that nothing's going to be done. No improvements are going to be done. If you look at page 8, they're all configured very oddly, and they're attractive to people that are comparing them to quarter-acre lots in neighborhoods. So I think I'll sell them quickly, but they don't look very good at all if you look at page 8. So that's why we wanted to divide them to look much better and more rectangularly. So, we went through that whole process, but then found out this multi-lot stormwater plan, and also they wanted an alternative water source for fire, which isn't required now. But they said, well, that's going to require another, because you can't extend water for the city for that. We can't extend it for 2 of the lots for water. But they said, they said that's going to require another complete retention pond. And with the stormwater retention pond and the fire source retention pond, they said you might even lose 1 or 2 lots. So I have 7 now. I can just sell probably within a month. I'm also a real estate agent, but only not a very experienced one. Only with my own things I sell. But I can see these lots will sell quickly as they are. It's impossible. I think anybody can see it's impossible. I'm not creating any more value. Well, I am creating more value by making the lines better, and by putting in the lane will create more value. And bringing in city sewer eliminates the need for septic tanks, which nobody wants. But when you figure the cost of that lane, all that additional value is going to go to the cost of that lane. So I'm breaking about even on that right now than if I just sell them as they are, ugly as I think they are. It's just impossible to do that stormwater plan or the alternative water source plan, which is not required at all now. So I'm saying, hey, that's an even trade, let us put in the lane, the 20-foot lane that is rated for a fire truck. Right now, it's a 15-foot lane that's gravel. That I had planned on leaving it gravel that I could make attractive and make look like a country lot. But it's a 15-foot gravel lane that a fire truck can't get down. So even though we're not going to give this alternative water source, which is no alternative water source for any country road, basically, but if we are able to put in that lane, a fire truck will be able to go down it. And that lane eliminates, now as the lots sit, they have 3 separate entrances to Indian River, like 3 driveway entrances. The 15-foot lane, but then a driveway from the house to the left, and then another entrance. That lane would eliminate all of that. And traffic wanted us to flare that lane out to 30 foot at the end, so it'd be nice, safely ingress and egress. So we've agreed to the lane, bringing in city sewer. The main objection of neighbors is drainage and taking down trees. Well, I submit with our plan, bringing in city sewer is going to eliminate the need for drain fields for all these septic tanks, which is a 40 by 100 foot area that has to be cleared for septic and drain field. So you're eliminating those trees taken down. We're agreeing to a 30-foot buffer zone between all the neighbors and a 0.82 acre preservation area. So that's committing many trees not to be taken down. If we just sell lots as they are now, legally, I believe that the owners have the right to take down trees where they would like. Because there isn't any commitment not to take down trees. So basically, I submit that instead of my having to sell the 7 lots as they sit now, no improvements, and then once I sell them, each individual owner isn't going to be able to improve anything. They basically build on it like they are, which I should have done 6 years ago. I could have built on the first lot, turned that over within 8 months, bought the second lot, built it. So it isn't a money thing for me. It was a matter of, hey, how can I make a nice little neighborhood here? And I think what we propose makes it a nice little neighborhood instead of a hodgepodge of basically unusual lots. And so, and I believe, the tree issue, I think definitely our project saves trees. But the drainage issue, I even think our project is better for drainage, because if I sell all the lots now, they're long and skinny or weirdly shaped. It's required, and it will be required with this approval, that any lot have an engineer submit a stormwater plan that is certified by an engineer, but then the city has a chance to come in and say, hey, this doesn't look right. And with each lot being an average of 1 3/4 acres, you can have a good stormwater plan. Even if the city came in and said, hey, we want you to put a little retention pond, each lot has 1 3/4 acres on each lot. So it seems for the neighbors' objections, my project would serve them better because drainage would be easier to design on each lot, which isn't required. See, I have 35 seconds, which isn't required if I just sell them now. There's really, if I sell them now, there's hardly any restrictions, where we've agreed to quite a bit. I mean, I even agreed to the lane, which is basically taking all my additional profit for going through all of this. And it's an estimation. I'm thinking, hey, I'm hoping to break even on the lane. So there's no way I can do a stormwater provision. So I'm trying to, I see my time's up. Can I have 20 seconds just tell you what I did?
Sorry, when the time's up, it concludes your time because we have 3 speakers, but I will open it to the commissioners for questions at this point in case before you sit down. Then you'll have time to rebut whatever is said with the opposition, if that's what it is. So give me a second here. Anybody would like questions right now? or comments? All right, so this time, just have a seat. We'll call you back up where you can rebut on whatever's set up here. Call you right back up. Thank you. First speaker.
First speaker is Chandler Calvert, followed by Albert Daly.
How you doing, sir? If you can just state your name.
Yes, sir. I'm Chandler Calvert,
Okay.
and I live in the villages of West Neck, and I'm a resident there. I've been a resident there since almost the beginning in the year 2000. At that time, around 2002, I was elected to the board, and I've been on the board of West Neck Community ever since. I'm very concerned about our community. I am not representing the board at this time because I can't do that, but I'm representing myself and my concern for the community. West Neck has had some drainage issues in the past, especially in that area. There are 13 plus homes that border the area that we're talking about, and it is wet all the time back there. The stormwater system that was put in prevents flooding, but the area itself is wet. We're opposing this modification because we believe the storm and water management is essential for our community's benefit. And that's the main reason we're doing it. We can't control what individual homeowners do to their lots. If they sell that, we can't, there's nothing we can do. They can cut down trees, they can do whatever they want to their lot. But we feel that at this time, that we would be better served as a community if it was not modified and you accepted what the Planning Commission said.
All right, thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Albert Daly, followed by Thomas Carini.
Good afternoon. My major concern continues to be the drainage in the backyards of my neighbors and myself. Although I'm at the high end of Charisma Court, I had to spend over $7,000 to improve the drainage, which includes 4 drains and flower beds, because my backyard was so wet, grass would not grow, and it was just totally mud. And my backyard was and remains so wet that it doesn't ever really seem to dry out. I would just ask to please continue to take into consideration the drainage problem with the removal of any trees and the building up of the land for construction before relaxing any standards being implemented for this project. It's very concerning to think about more water runoff coming the way of the residents on Charisma Court. In addition to the above, the traffic on Indian River Road is dangerous with the narrow condition of the road, and I just wonder if there's any plans to widen the road for turning lanes, especially with the current increase in development along this road. So thank you very much. And I got to give kudos to the planning department. They were very transparent and very helpful with this, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for that. Next speaker.
Our next and final speaker is Thomas Carini.
Afternoon. You just state your name in the mic so we can get it on record.
Thomas Carini.
Great.
Deforesting will affect the water drainage. Trees absorb rainwater. Riddick Road is a good example of a bad entrance road. Retention pond for excess water also can be used by the fire department. So we need a retention pond. And what about the road entering the new homes? That has to be widened. Accidents on River Road can create the road to close for hours. This Indian River Road needs many improvements, especially access turns. I know that's a long way off, but Indian Road is a road I avoid. So that's a big concern of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all the speakers?
There are no other speakers.
All right, Mr. Brown, if you can come forward so you can rebut on what was said, and I'm sure the commissioners might have some questions for you.
Do I have a time limit? I mean, I can stay under 10 minutes, probably 5.
No time limit because I'm sure there's a couple commissioners that have some questions.
It seems the neighbors, the main thing they would prefer is to leave it natural back there, which if I was them, I'd prefer that also. But the decision is not no project, leave it as it is. The decision is build on the lots as they are now, or and do the improvements that I suggest.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second because I need to get some clarity on that. It's my understanding you don't have 7 lots, you have 4 lots that are buildable. Can I get, Ms. Alstott, can you do that, or?
Based on the existing configuration, so that image to the left there, and based on the information Aubrey presented earlier, 4 of the 6 lots that are the subject of this application would be buildable under the existing configuration.
So I understand you have 4 lots that are buildable.
Right. There's 7, if you look at our plan that was approved, there's actually 7 total, and one of them has already had a site plan and been approved. So that's one additional that's buildable right now. And then when I spoke earlier, I said one of the other lots, I didn't tell you, but had a house on it 5 years ago that the lot wasn't created legally, but it's currently assessed at $135,000. So you have to go through that process with a site plan to have it declared, to conform with it being a legal lot, which I've found the city usually works with you to do that. And so I'm saying there's 7 existing lots that at a minimum 5 are buildable. But I believe the other 2 assessed at $135,000 and $197,000 that the city seems to indicate we think these can be buildable, that they would be, but at a minimum 5 would be buildable. But what I'm basically saying is the decision is not nothing or build, that most likely, I would say most likely, well, definitely 5 are going to be built on. I would say 6, including the one that already had a house on it, but the other one's assessed at $197,000. So I would, just from my experience of having lots like this and working with the city usually doesn't want to take a lot and declare it not buildable, basically eliminating all the value. So that's where I speak of 7, but there's 5. I had met with Mr. Daly at his property to see just what his problem was. And we agreed at the time, because he has no trees much at all on his property, and the runoff from the house is a very small lot, I think under 10,000 square feet, that his water problems was mainly coming from when they developed his neighborhood, that it wasn't water coming from our property. And I've owned all these properties for 7 years, and after 3 years of torrential rain, 3 days of a lot of rain, I've gone out there, and I don't see any drainage problems. But each of these lots is going to have its own stormwater plan certified by an engineer that the city, because I've done this before, will spare no expense, our expense, to make sure no water goes on a neighbor's property. And it's going to be certified by an engineer on each lot when they submit their building plans and approved by the city. So there is going to be stormwater plans that, in my opinion, the city will make sure on these each individual ones will not affect the neighbors. But there's no way that we can spend $800,000 or more to do retention ponds. And that just doesn't work. So it's either sell them as they are now or do the extensive improvements we've agreed to, which I can't imagine anybody wants the lots to just exist as they are now. And I would love to, I'm concluding, I think where it goes wrong in people's minds, Normally, a developer comes in 12 acres, makes 30 one-third acre lots, and they have enough money to do anything. Even if I started with 7 lots and ended up with 15, I'd have enough money to do just about anything. But with starting with 7 and ending with 7 existing lots under the density thing, 5 buildable, the money's just not there to do anything else. But we can do the extensive improvements we've already agreed to.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Mr. Cromwell?
In other words, you have it platted for 7 lots now,
The plat,
or, yeah.
page 8 is the engineers, was our proposal. Oh, you mean as they exist now?
Yes, as it exists now, it's going to be developed simultaneously, perhaps, 7 lots at a.
7. If you look at page 8, I think it's page 8, let me, it's either page 8 or page 9 shows, no, page 9 shows our lots in the colored, how they would exist colored-wise, but then the dotted lines show the existing lots, like the front parcel 1 and 2, you can see are very long, skinny lots. But then all we wanted to do was just change that line and go crossways, and you end up, and these are visible from Indian River. You end up with some very nice lots, and basically that same principle applies to what we're trying to do with all the other lots. But that page shows how they exist now and what we propose.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Cromwell, no?
That's good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Moss?
I don't know if I have a question, but, we're looking at basically 4 lots with the other 2 not necessarily meeting the standards to be able to build on unless the city allows for the houses that were currently there, or previously there, to be built on. And I think, a lot of our decisions come down to land use, not necessarily cost of how that land is being built out. And I think, the city, when they had already previously approved it with the stormwater standards that they had added in, I think they look at that area within the southern watershed to be important. And I think that was kind of the main reason that they had put those standards in place, with an understanding that 4 of those could be built as houses currently today without meeting that standard or the above standard. So I think,
and actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you look at page 8, parcel 3 is buildable now also.
correct, and that one's not in our purview.
It's not part of
Right.
this, yeah.
But that one was created and approved under a different standard that we're not necessarily looking back at. So, I just kind of wanted to say that because 4 of them can be built by right. 2 of them don't necessarily meet the standards currently. And our decision is to make the decision based off of the land use, not necessarily how much it costs to build out that land. And that's the part that we really need to kind of take into consideration, because we aren't supposed to even really necessarily take that part of it into consideration, although it is a consideration on the applicant. So that I just wanted to say that out loud.
And they mentioned that in planning, they don't take into account cost. But, so I would say just take into account, either leave the lots as they are or improve them as I propose, which I think it's much better, I'm just looking from the city's point of view, much better for the city to improve them instead of build on them as they are. And in note, parcel 3 used to be just like these 2 lots that aren't legally created, but I think about 6 or 7 years ago, there was somebody that was going to build on it, and they got with the city, and they determined that, well, it is an existing lot under the density, and they approved a site plan on it, which is why I was saying in my experience with other lots that I feel the two that are not approved are not legal now. Normally, the city works with you to make them legal.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Hippen?
Okay, so when I look at this, I'm looking at, there's a 10,000 square foot parcel that is not buildable, okay? I'm not looking at parcel 3. That's under a different project, so let's toss that out, please, okay? And then there's another 3.66 acre parcel, okay, that is not buildable.
As it stands now.
As it stands now. The reason that you went to this second, to rearranging the lots, because those two lots, the 10,000 and the 3.66, those were not properly created in the past. And now what happened was with the plan where you agreed to do condition number 8 and do all of the stuff for the drainage, for the good of the area, they redid the lots so that your lots were in conformance with lots that are buildable. Did you not understand that when you agreed to condition 8?
I do understand, and the legal representative maybe can speak to it more, but I think that process of taking them from not being a legally created lot, they do that all the time with different lots that were created, but at the time they were created, maybe it was before 1960 that the city did not have the process to make them legal. So when you want to build on them, you have to go back to the city and submit your site plan and to make them legal. And that's what they did on Lot 3. So I think that same process, that if I sell the lots, and I'm saying it's not a guarantee, but if you just look at it that 4 out of the 6 can be built on right now, I would submit that it would be better to put in all the improvements and go ahead and allow the other 2 to become legal and go with our plan as opposed to building on 4 as they sit now and selling off the other lots, which, like I said, the city assesses them at 135 and 196.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry, but you did not answer my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Two of those lots,
We're not building
you
them.
did by deed, and they were not legally created. Yes or no?
Right. I didn't do anything with the deed, but one of them had a house on it.
And it has no frontage to a street, correct?
To Indian River. Right.
Correct, right?
As do a lot of the other ones.
I'm specifically talking about the 10,000,
Right.
right?
I'll concede-
Am I wrong or
I'll
right?
concede with you.
Okay, okay.
I'll concede with
so
you
you have
that
2 lots.
If 2 of them maybe never will be buildable, that 2 of them maybe never will be buildable. I think, in my experience of working with the city, they work with you to get a variance and work with, well, what's the issue, and to make them buildable. So I think there is a chance they will be buildable, but I would contend, even if you look at those 2 never being buildable, it would be better to go with our plan to make the whole area look better. And I'm not making any more money on making them buildable.
I wasn't talking about money.
Yeah.
My point to you
It's all
is
going to
that
the lane.
my point to you is that there were 2 lots.
I concede.
Okay.
I concede. Those they may never be.
And the reason that you were brought to, now you've talked about page 8. The reason that you were brought to the design of the lots on page 9 was so that you had 6 lots that were buildable. Do you agree with that?
That the city would sign off on them being buildable. Yes.
Okay, because they fit they conform to residential lots that are buildable. Do you agree with that?
I think they still required a variance because they don't have public road. They still needed that public road frontage, which really none of them have.
Okay, but that is, these are things that that are part of the development process.
That's
Do you
part
agree
of it.
with that?
And that was the trade-off. That was why we agreed to spend all that money on the lane. And I've spent 3 or 4 years trying to get this done.
Okay. So you agree then? I'm going to
But the
take that as a
city-
yes.
I agree. It's totally in
Okay.
the city's hands.
So once all of this was done and you came to city council said, "Oop, we've got to make sure that the homes that you build on these lots have the proper drainage for development." And you agreed to that, correct?
Well, I agreed to it, but not realizing what it entailed.
But you
The
agreed to
cost,
it,
yeah.
right? Okay,
Well, I
so
mean,
now you've come back to us, and I'm asking, okay, to clarify it, make sure I understand where you're coming from, okay?
Sure.
So you agreed to this in 2023, okay? We're now in 2024. Now you've come back and said, I can't afford to build it. This is what I'm getting from all of the report, everything that I've read, everything that I've listened to you say.
Yeah.
I agreed to this last year, but this year I say, no, I want to take off that condition because I can't afford it.
That I think anybody looking at it from the beginning, if they would have knew the cost, would have said it's not affordable.
Then why'd you agree to it before you researched it,
Because
sir?
I did not know the cost estimates. The only thing I was familiar with was just the modeling program that tells you sort of where the water goes. Oops, excuse me. That costs roughly $10,000 every time you run it. And I was told, boy, that can go 2, 3, 4 times sometimes. And at first we weren't agreeing to it. For 2 years or so, we weren't agreeing. That was the sticking point was, well, no, that wasn't the whole reason it took that long. There was one of those lots, they couldn't figure out where it was. And so it took them a couple years to figure all that out. But we didn't agree, or we basically said, because that modeling program is so expensive, which I was thinking tens of thousands of dollars, we shouldn't be, because we're starting with 7 existing lots.
No, not 7. One of those 6, one of those lots is another project, sir. So
Yeah,
can
but
we
it
just
is
stick
in the,
with
it is in the
what
whole
this one
plan that
is?
is under.
But we're going to
to
stick with what we've got here, sir, okay? You keep diverting us to 7 lots, sir, and it's 6. So please, can we stick to,
But the 7th lot is under the multi-lot plan that we are submitting.
but it is not part of this project. It is not part of what we're discussing today, sir.
I think it has to fall under that multi-lot stormwater plan. It's not part of the individual approvals, but when they do that stormwater plan, it's included in the neighborhood.
Okay, so now, so you have come to us and to the city to say, the stormwater, I can't, I want to develop, but I can't do the stormwater plan.
There's just no
Is that
possible way.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure, okay. Do you understand? I'm trying to figure out if you understand that the stormwater plan is what makes them viable for someone to want to buy. Because when I've bought 2 homes in Virginia Beach, okay? And these are things that I looked at to buy a home, okay? So I'm trying to figure out if you realize that taking that away, okay, and even if you sell the lots off, there's going to have to be something done.
Well, that's what, the stormwater plan, the 4, let's go to the 4 that you're saying are buildable. Those could be sold quickly. And then because some of them are over 2 acres and they average, I know on all of them, they average 1 3/4 acres. So there will be a stormwater plan for each site. And I used to be a builder and actually at the front of these subdivision, we built 2 houses at the front 5 years ago or so. And they were about 1 acre and sold. There's just no lots like these that are that size. They sold quickly and we built, and there was a stormwater plan. When you submit the site plan, you have to submit a drainage plan, which is basically
Correct.
basically a stormwater plan. And there, we built on those, and they were 1 acre where these are 1 3/4 acres. And there wasn't a problem developing a plan on them. And I think these will be easily a plan developed stormwater on the 4, but I concede, maybe never on others, but I concede, regardless of what benefits me, that it's better for the city, because it isn't like we're not going to build on any of them. They're going to be built on. It's just a matter of whether we do the lane improvements. I mean, if we go with you just turn everything down, then I have no choice but to sell them as they are.
Okay, you've answered my question.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
but
you.
then there would be no lane.
Okay, thank you. You've answered.
Can I just,
I think,
10
Mr. Brown,
seconds?
I've had 3 commissioners discuss this, and you've repeated it 3 times, so.
Okay.
Unless there's any other different questions for Mr. Brown, Mr. Motch.
Just a quick different question. Could I get staff to give me a clarification on the process to make parcels that were not legally created buildable?
Yeah, so the process that would have to follow is the subdivision variance process that these parcels went through. I think it started in 2020 and 2023. So that's what then enables this body and ultimately council to go through and approve any of the variances required, since in this case they don't have access to a public street, but that would then allow staff what it needs to go through and record a subdivision plat. So right now, the figure on the right that was approved with the 2 subdivision variance requests, that was approved, and it would need to move forward. There is no plat that has been recorded yet for this new configuration. That would not be able to be recorded until those subdivision variance requests were approved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'd like a motion. Yes, Mr. Cromwell.
I don't support the removal of condition 8, as this is a multi-lot site plan that does require a stormwater plan as approved by City Council. Stormwater is a critical issue that has to be addressed. And as such, I move for denial.
All right, motion by Mr. Cromwell for denial.
Second.
Second by Ms. Cuellar. Vote's open. Oh, are there any abstain? Anybody abstaining? None?
The vote is now
Any
open.
discussions? None. Mr. Costin?
And that statement is to Mr. Brown is that I understand your plight, but the conditions have changed. So that plan that you used to use to get stormwater through is no longer acceptable. We're doing something else, and that's the one that costs. So we really don't have any other option, really. You can't go that route possibly.
You're talking about individual, like,
Right. I'm talking about the stormwater plan has changed the requirement. We're now requiring the plan that you say is too expensive to do. That's what's required for you to move forward.
All right, any other? All right, I'm opening the vote.
Commissioner Cromwell?
By a recorded vote of 8-1, item number 5, Thomas Brown, has been recommended for denial.
Thank you, sir.
when it says yes, though, that's yes.
Yes to deny.
Okay, that was confusing.
Thank you. That concludes our formal hearing today. Thank you.